stool needs a third leg.
Oh, this is all.
Congratulations.
That's such a short word.
Huh?
I'm deliberately.
Dara, Facebook is waiting. Come on.
Ask us a really complicated housing policy question now.
Well, you may start for the RT camera now as well.
I will wait for you. There's Dara.
Good man.
Isn't Dara well dressed?
Good colour coordination.
Good morning, everybody. We're here this morning briefly to respond to two reports that were published today by ESRI in relation to house pricing and by DAFT.ie in relation to the rental sector. So you have a cohort of people that have woken up this morning to hear these reports and to hear, despite the fact that many of them are priced out of the market presently, that they're facing a 20% increase in house prices over the next 3 years. And we're told that this is not a bubble that is being created. But there is a narrative here that we need to challenge, and the narrative is that this is normal and this is acceptable and this is the way it is. Like we don't accept what the Taoiseach said at the weekend in relation to the homelessness figures in Ireland being akin to many other countries in Europe, and it's somehow normal for that to be the case. We don't believe this is normal either, and we need to challenge that contention, and we do so by making, as an opposition and a functioning opposition, to put forward alternatives, to put forward proposals, to put forward policy initiatives that we would like to see the government entertain with the view to addressing this crisis. In that regard, the whole area of affordability continues to be something that hasn't been addressed to date by this government. Fine Gael's only act in relation to affordable house schemes was to take away the 10% affordability section of what was Part 5 and has not been replaced since. There's a whole cohort of people, as we know, that can't get on a social housing list, they can't afford a mortgage, they can't afford rent, and there is no scheme specifically tailored to meet their needs. There's a big issue obviously in relation to construction costs that we've been saying for many years, in relation to development levies, in relation to certification costs, in relation to cost of construction, and in relation to the cost of finance. And we would expect the government again to address these issues, not having done so to date. The other issue is in relation to direct support for buyers. Obviously the scheme that was introduced by government in this area is not working. We've seen the Housing Finance Agency acknowledge a commitment we had given in our manifesto in relation to an SSIA type savings scheme to help and assist people with saving for deposits. We think that is, a road the government should move to. In relation to the rental sector, the DAFT.ie report, there's a whole supply overlap affecting that sector obviously too, that can help and assist in that regard. In relation to the rent pressure zones, obviously they need to be extended. There was, at the time at which they were introduced this time last year, there was a commitment from government that there'd be a review in June. We've neither seen nor heard what has come from that review. It was overtaken obviously by the Fine Gael leadership race. It was overtaken by a new minister moving into that brief. But again, nothing emanating from a commitment that was given. You also had a commitment given at that time in relation to the Commission on Taxation that would make recommendations to the Finance Minister in relation to help and assistance for those landlords, or for new landlords, or to retain landlords in return for improvements in relation to security around tenure. And again, I, for example, haven't seen the report that was given to government or to the Minister for Finance. He hasn't responded to what might have been in it. We don't know what he rejected, if he rejected anything, or if they were true to the commitment that they had given. And obviously then we're introducing our own bill this week to seek to regulate short-term letting and Airbnb type accommodation. And there is obviously, apparently, and the joint Oireachtas committee made this assertion and did make some recommendations in this area, and we want to build on that with this bill, which will set a limit of 90 nights because we have seen in the cities especially a move towards professional letting under those headings, which has taken a lot of property out of the marketplace in relation to rental accommodation too. So, any questions emanating from those few points? I think.
Barry, your concern is affordable housing, and the Minister said that an affordable home is around €300,000. What would you classify as an affordable home? What price range?
Well, it's definitely not 300,000. Cowen in Ballymun was a cooperative movement that got land from the local authority at a nominal figure of €1,000, I think, and was able to offer homes, one bed for 140 and 4 beds up to 200,000. They're affordable homes. They're a model that should be replicated around the country. And I know in the UK, for example, state lands are made available to the building sector, to housing associations or co-ops, where the profit is set and price is set and the contracts are awarded based on the quality of those contracts. And that's something that needs to be in place in this country on a much wider scale. And you also have options for people, say, for example, can seek to rent at affordable rates and have an option within a 5-year window to buy at a preconceived price. That's the sort of real effective affordable schemes we want to see, and we haven't seen to date. It's been very disappointing, to say the least, and it's very frustrating, and there's huge anger and frustration out there amongst those on social housing waiting lists, on those cohort that can neither afford to buy or to rent and don't see the potential to do so. And I think, and it's our party's contention, that everybody should aspire to own their own home if they so wish, and they should be given every opportunity and assistance to achieve that. And any deviation from that, in my opinion, is an abdication of the responsibility of government.
Are yourselves and the Department of Housing got into a bit of a war by press release yesterday, trying to compare Ireland's figures to the English figures and who has a better record or whatever? Some people would say that it's all well and good to fact check what the department is saying, but that it's irrelevant where we are, relevant to other countries when we have a problem, and that we shouldn't be focusing on comparisons, we should just be dealing with the problem.
You're dead right. We shouldn't be focusing on statistics. This is not about statistics. It's not about figures. It's about people. It's about real people. It's about real lives. It's about really humanising this. And again, to hear, it is hugely disappointing to hear the Minister and to hear the Taoiseach and to hear Mr. Skehan, for example, say that the figures in relation to the amount of people that are homeless, the figures in relation to the amount of children that are homeless are somehow normal. For example, I wasn't elected to the Parliament in Spain or Italy or Greece or anywhere else. I have a responsibility to those that give me the privilege to be in this jurisdiction, to be in this door. And I won't stand over, or I couldn't, or wouldn't stand over the fact that somebody says it's normal that over 3,000 children are in emergency accommodation. It's a shame that they're in emergency accommodation, and I have to accept some of that responsibility as a parliamentarian. And I won't stand idly by and allow a Taoiseach of this country and a minister of his government say that it's normal for 8,000 people to be homeless, for 3,000 children to be homeless, for 3,000 children to be in emergency accommodation. It's not normal for me in a clinic yesterday to have person after person whom are frustrated and at their wits' end in relation to what potential they may have to find a suitable home for them and their families and for their partners or their children. It just can't be allowed to continue at the rate at which it's progressing. And for those people to say that they're facing, for example, an increase in their rent, and I say to them it's against the law for the rate to be increased to the amount that they're saying, or based on the conditions of the contract that they have, and they're saying sod the contract. They want to stay in that home because it's a home and there's no alternative. That's what we're faced with. And then to hear a minister at his party conference where he wouldn't discuss housing at any great length or great detail, say that it's normal. Shameful.
Barry, do you accept though that you're comparing apples and oranges in your figures?
Look, I simply, looked at some figures in the UK as a desktop exercise, if for nothing else, to show that if you want to get down and dirty to talk about figures, there was comparisons that were not as he would have you believe, and there was comparisons that he used in these European norm figures that themselves relate to many years previously. And the figures that were used to compare Ireland were 2 or 3 years ago. Not that this crisis only began then, it's back as far as 2013. But that's irrelevant. And and I don't want to get into a war of words in relation to statistics. I want to face the facts, and the facts are there are too many people homeless. There are too many children homeless. And for him to get into a war of words about the statistics emanating from Spain, Italy, Greece, wherever it may be, I don't care. I care, and I have a responsibility to this jurisdiction, to my constituents, and to Dáil Éireann, and to the people who elect everybody else that's in there. And collectively, we have to do a lot more than is being done.
Do you think that you've done enough? Has there been a sense that the staff over the rent pressure zones last December have been falling back after the government have allowed?
No, I've just said to you that what emanated from that in relation to an agreement that was struck between ourselves and Fine Gael was that there was to be a review of it, and there was to be extensions of it as areas met the criteria. And that has happened. I have no problem with that. But there are areas of the country that you have to talk about relativity. I mean, in the town where I come from, where somebody says to me yesterday, where the rent was €500 and now they want to put it up to €750, and the cap and the housing assistance payment is €475. Sure, this mess can't continue. And if there was to be a review, well, where is the review, and what does it say, and what recommendations have come from it? And you need to ask that question of the Minister for Housing and of the Taoiseach. I do, and I will, and I expect you to do so also. And I also say to you, the Commission for Taxation was agreed by Michael Noonan at the time to make recommendations pre-budget, and for government to digest those and agree or disagree or do as they will or do as they wish, whichever they're entitled to do. And they haven't done it. And I'm saying to you, yes, I'm very disappointed that there hasn't been movement. And I'm very annoyed that, for example, I haven't seen the report from the Commission of Taxation, if there was one at all. If there was one at all. And let's see it. Where is it? And why isn't it there?
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. So,